All right, this is 1.3. We're going to do number 3 in our homework. And the point of these types of problems, 1 through 4, is to add and subtract correctly. So what I see on number 3 is I have a 4x cubed. That's the biggest exponent. And I'm going to be subtracting it with an x cubed in the other one, if there are any. So here we have a 3x cubed. So 4x cubed and minus 3x cubed is just x cubed. Those are done. The next thing should be x squared. Well, there's not an x squared. There's not an x squared in the first parentheses. But you do have a 2x squared in the second one. But be careful. You are still subtracting everything in the second parentheses. So you're minusing a 2x squared. That's what comes next. That's the problem with this problem. After your 2x squared is done, then you go to x to the first. Well, here we have a 5x and a 5x. But again, it's a minus. 5x minus 5x is 0x. That's gone. The next thing are your constants. You have a negative 3 and a negative 8. Do not write negative 11. You have the minus sign in between them. Negative 3 minus negative 8. So a negative 3 minus a negative 8 is going to be a positive 5. That's what number 3 is going to be. All right, number 5. Let's just make sure we can do the distribution, okay? So 2x times 3x is 6x squared. And 2x times negative 7 is minus 14x. Then you do the 5. Positive 5 times positive 3x is 15x. And positive 5 times a negative 7 is negative 35. And then we have like terms here. 6x squared plus x minus 35. So we need to make sure we know how to do every single one of these problems in this set, 1 through 11. All of these are possibilities, but you've been shown how to do this stuff, so let's move on. All right, so let's take a look at number 15 and make sure we know what to do with this. All you're doing is distributing through 2 of the parentheses at a time and then doing the next one. So let's write this out. X times 2x is 2x cubed. Then x times a negative 2 is negative 2x. Then you have 1 times 2x squared is 2x squared. And 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. All right, that's the first multiplication. And then we'll have the x cubed plus 5. So at this point, let's make sure this is correct. Let's put it in the correct order. 2x cubed plus 2x squared minus 2x minus 2. All of that times x cubed plus 5. And now multiply straight through. So 2x cubed times x cubed is 2x to the 6th. 2x cubed times 5 is going to be 10x cubed. All right, and then we do the 2x squared. 2x squared times x cubed is 2x to the 5th. 2x squared times 5 is 10x squared. Now do the minus 2x. Minus 2x times x cubed is minus 2x to the 4th. Minus 2x times 5 is minus 10x. And the last one, minus 2 times x cubed is minus 2x cubed. And minus 2 times 5 is minus 10. Now put everything in order. 2x to the 6th. Then we have an x to the 5th. And we have a minus 2x to the 4th. And we have 2x cubes, a 10 and a minus 2, so that would be plus 8x cubed. And we have 1x squared, so that's plus 10x squared. And then we have a minus 10x and a minus 10 that's left over. And we've crossed everything out. You might want to try doing it this way to make sure you do it right. Now let's do number 19. Let's get rid of this stuff. Number 19. So again, it's a complex fraction. So I notice that I'll be able to reduce some of these things in each of the numerators from the denominator. So I'm going to rewrite this with the exact same denominator. And then we can reduce. We can't reduce like we used to do when it was all multiplication and division. So since there's subtraction, and addition operations, you can separate everything and then reduce it. So technically you have 3 problems in one here. So the u cubes reduce to 1, and 2 of these reduce with 2 of those, leaving 2 on top. So I have 3v squared. Okay? And now we take a look at the next one. We have a minus. 3 of these reduce with 3 on the top, so leaving 2 left over, so I have a 2u squared. And the v squared and the v squared reduce to 1. Now over here, let's go ahead and do this part, the distribution. That's u to the 4th, v to the 4th, over u cubed, v squared. So again, just keep marking everything down one step at a time. 3 of these u's reduce with 3 of those, leaving 1. And 2 of these v's reduce with 2 of those, leaving 2. And that would be your answer. All right, let's move on. So let's go with 29. On number 29, we have x squared minus 5y squared to the second power. You cannot distribute the exponent through the parentheses. You have to treat this like this. You have a subtraction sign in the problem, so you can't distribute that outside exponent. So we have 2 of each of the binomials. So let's distribute. It's just work. That's all this is. So this is 5x squared y squared. That's negative 5x squared y squared. And that's positive 25y to the 4th. So you have a minus 5x squared y squared minus 5x squared y squared. So you have x to the 4th minus 10x squared y squared. When you're adding like terms, the exponents don't change. You're just adding the coefficients. And now you're done. Let's go to the next slide. So here, let's go ahead and let's do number 35. Okay, so here we need to distribute all the way through. X to the 1/3 times x to the 2/3. You add the exponents, so that's x to the 3/3 or x. Now 1x to the 1/3 times 2x to the 1/3 y to the 1/3 is going to be positive 2. You add your exponents, that's going to be 2/3. And you have y to the 1/3. And then x to the 1/3 times that would be a positive 4. X to the 1/3, y to the 2/3. Now we do the minus 2y. That would be minus 2 x to the 2/3, y to the 1/3, minus 4 x to the 1/3, y to the 2/3. And this is a minus. You can do plus negative if you want. So minus 8 y to the 3/3, or y to the 1st. Okay, so are there any that are identical? So x to the 2/3, y to the 1/3. So we have a positive 2 of those and a negative 2 of those. So those cancel out. They don't reduce out, they cancel out. And you have a positive 4 and a negative 4 of those exact same exponents. So those cancel out. So you're left with x minus 8y. All right, so we need to look at any of these types of problems. Let's go ahead and we'll do number 41. 41. So again, the square just means you have 2 of these trinomials. So multiply straight through. 37 through 43, that's all you got to do on these. So that's a squared plus ab minus ac. So make sure you get your signs right. That's ab, that's b squared, and that's minus bc. And then the c, negative c, that's minus ac, minus bc, plus c squared. All right, so we have an a squared, a b squared, and a positive c squared. A plus ab, another plus ab, so that's 2ab, and there aren't any more. We have a negative ac, a negative ac, there aren't any more, so that's a negative 2ac. And then we have two of these minus bc's, so minus 2bc. And now you're done. Okay, on 45, we start out with factoring. We're going to factor in this section here, so you have to ask yourself, what is common in all the terms? Well, in this case, s is the only thing common. Factoring is just division. So what can I divide both terms by? So if I divide both terms by the common thing, that means what I'm doing is I'm taking it out to the front of the parentheses. So what do I have left? I have an r plus a 4t. So backwards distribution is called factoring. Distribution is multiplication, so factoring is division. And we're just rearranging what we're doing here. All right, let's look at 51. So we need a little space. All right, 51. The first thing you should do is look to see if you can factor anything out. Again, let me write it out here. What is common, and then write underneath each one what you're going to be factoring out. Well, first of all, look at the numbers. They're all divisible by 5. Now look at the letters. They all have x's. What's the smallest exponent on the x? That would be x cubed. And what's the smallest exponent on the y? Because they all have y's. So y squared. That is what is going to go out in front of our parentheses. So now the question is, what's left? So the x cubes reduce out on the first one. 15 over 5 is 3. And 2 of these y's reduce with 2 of those, leaving 3 left. Next, 25 divided by 5 is 5. And 3 of these x's reduces with 3 of those x's, leaving 1 x. And the y squareds reduce to 1. And then we have 10 divided by 5 is 2. 3 of these x's reduce with 3 of those, leaving an x cubed. And 2 of these y's reduce with 2 of those y's, leaving y squared. And then you need to look at this and say, hey, that's a trinomial. Does that factor? But for the sake of time, this does not factor. So you're done at this point. All right, let's move on. Let's do number 57. All right, so again, we have normal factoring here, and everybody's supposed to be very good, so I know you're probably not. Let's go ahead and work on the factoring into the binomials here. I always say use the middle factors, 20, first, and see if you can get them to work that way. So let's go 3x and 2x, and then we'll put 4 and 5. So if we check the middle, that's 8, and the outside, that's 15. If we put those together in a way, we can get the positive 7 by making that positive 15 and negative 8, which means the 4 has to be negative and the 5 has to be positive. All right, so there you go. That would be what that factors into. I got lucky, but I always start with the middle ones first. But sometimes you'll have to use the extreme ones to get it done. All right, let's move on. Okay, let's do 63, and let's do 67. So 63, again, we are looking at a trinomial. So take a look at this. You got 1 and 25 and 5 and 5. So let's use 5 and 5. And we'll use 3 and 3. So, and since these are all pluses, automatically those are pluses. That's the only time you can do that. So what do we get there? That's 15 and 15. That adds up to the 30 we need. So we are done. So how that should be written, if they are the same, the book's going to write it like that, or at least it should. All right, now let's clear that and go with 67. 64r squared minus 25t squared. So it is the difference of two perfect squares, meaning you can take the square roots of those. So the square root of those, first of all, that's what this is going to be if it's the difference of two perfect squares. So the square root of the first is 8r, so that's going to go into the first positions. And the second one is 5t. Done. That's the easiest one to factor if you can tell that you can take the square root of both of them and you have the difference subtraction between them. Next slide. Let's do number 75. So on this one, you have the difference, but these aren't perfect squares. 75 is not a perfect square, and neither is 48. So what you should do is ask if you can factor anything out of those. So 5, you have 1, and 75, you have 5 and 5, 5 goes into it. Let's see, 15 times 3 will go into it, 3 and 25. And I'm not sure, I think that might be it. So let's see what we have here. 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 will work. That'll be 16, 4 and 12, 5 doesn't work, 6 and 8. And notice how the gap closes, so we should have done that over here, so let's do it that way. 75 is a weird number, so 2 and 3 won't work. Oh, 3 does, I'm sorry, 25. And then it was 5 and 15, so we're closing the range of numbers here. 6 won't work because 2 doesn't work. You need 2 and 3 in order for 6 to work. Let's see, 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work, so I think we're done because you keep going, but you don't have to go past 15 because you close the gap. All right, so what are the common ones here? I would say 3. Let's take a 3 out and we get 25x squared, which that then is a perfect square, and you'll get 16y squared. All right, so now you can take the square root of both of those. So the 3 stays there, and you do a plus and a minus. Now what's the square roots? 5x and 5x, and 4y and 4y. That's your answer. Okay, now we need to do clearing of this, and we will do number 79. 79 is the difference of cubes. So you should know what this is. If you have a minus sign, that goes first and the rest are pluses. If it was a plus sign for the sum of cubes, then the minus sign would be in the second position here. But it's not. Okay, so now what you do is you take the cubed roots of these, and that's what goes in these positions. So 2x and y squared. Now what you do is you take these and you put them in this other position. So we square the first. You got to memorize this. Square the first, square the last, and then multiply the two together for the middle part. So 2xy squared. Okay, next slide. All right, let's do 85. 2ax minus 6bx plus ay minus 3by. Okay, first of all, can you factor anything out of all of them? No, you cannot. So anytime you have 4 terms, you should try factoring by grouping, meaning take this group and factor something out, and take that group and factor something out. So out of the first group, I can take a 2x. Okay, and what do I have? I have an a minus 3b. Now in the second group, if this were a minus, make sure you take out a negative, but it's not. So in this one, we're going to factor out a y, and we're left with a minus 3b. If these two are the same, then you did it correctly. So out of this term and now that term, those two groups, the common thing is the parentheses of a minus 3b. So if we take that and factor it out, we are left with 2x plus y. And that is what you do with factoring by grouping. Okay, now let's do 87. So your turn. Let's see. See if you can do this without looking, and then check it. All right. So again, I can take a 3 out of all of these. And I'm not so sure that's a necessary, but we'll go ahead and do it. And so out of that, I'm going to factor the group there, take an x squared out, and I get an x plus 1. Now I have a minus sign here, so I'm going to factor out a 9, negative 9, and I get an x plus 1. And so you notice that these two are the same, so I'm going to factor out an x plus 1 here. And what's left is an x squared minus 9. Okay, so we don't need these brackets anymore, but you're not done. You should notice now that you have the difference of squares. So that factors into x minus 3, x plus 3. So you can take the square root of those and it's a difference. So, and you still have the 3 and the x plus 1. That's what all of that factors into. You just keep working at it. And now, the last slide. Okay, let's do number 93. A to the 6th minus b to the 6th. Well, you could do the difference of cubes, and then you're going to get a trinomial that's going to look pretty ugly. What might be easier is taking and making this into a difference of squares. This is a tough problem to think about, but you've got to work through every type of possibility. So now that you have the difference of squares, the difference, and you can take the square root of these. So you put a plus and minus sign, and then the square roots go in these positions. So the square root of a square is just the base. And the square root of the square, again, is just the base. You got rid of those squares. Now you have the difference of cubes and the sum of cubes. So the difference of cubes, because you have a minus sign, it goes first, and the other two are pluses. Because you have a plus sign, the plus sign is first, and the minus sign is second. So you take the cube roots of all of these. So cube root of a cubed is a, and the cube root of b cubed is b. Same thing here, a and b. Now it's this part in the sum of cubes and difference of cubes that makes the trinomials. So we square the first, you square the second, that goes in the last position. You multiply the two together. Again, square the first, square the last, multiply the two together. And that whole thing is your answer. And lastly, let's do one more. Trying to get rid of all these. All right, let's do number 99. It's y to the 6th plus 7y cubed minus 8. So treat this as just if it was y squared plus 7y minus 8. And I'll show you what to do. So if we use the second one here, y, and factors of 8 that give me 7 are 8 and 1. So positive 7 would be positive 8 and a minus 1. All right, now, what do we do with these other exponents up here? Always, whatever is the middle exponent in a trinomial, that's what's going to be on your y's in the first positions. So if we look at the original one, that means these would be y cubed. So this is actually the sum of cubes, and that's the difference of cubes. So again, you have to do these separately. The sum of cubes, y plus 2, take the cubed root, remember, and then square it, square the last. If that was a plus sign at the beginning, then it's a minus sign second. So what goes in the middle? You multiply the first and second together, 2y. Same thing here. This has a minus sign. So there's going to be a minus sign first, and the rest are pluses. So cubed roots would be y and 1. Square the first, square the second, multiply the two together. And that whole thing would be your answer. And that is it.